Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. This is the Audacious Living Podcast. I'm Audley Stevenson, and it's our goal as always here to help you live your best audacious life ever. Thank you as always for being here on the program and checking us out. I'd also encourage you to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our YouTube channel, you can press subscribe and get the notifications right away and be up to speed with all things in the world of the Audacious Living Podcast. This episode comes on the tail of the long weekend here in Canada, where we celebrated Valentine's on Sunday, and then Family Day, which is a holiday, took place on Monday. So clearly the theme all weekend long has been around togetherness. So bearing that in mind, it's only fitting that we bookend the weekend of togetherness by focusing on today's episode around happiness and self-love and all the things that we can do to take care of ourselves. I'm super excited to have a conversation with Dr. Joel Kerr, aka Dr. J, who'll provide his insights on this very same topic. I've had the good pleasure of having Joel in my circle for a number of years. His uncle and I grew up as young men, learning and exploring the world. So to see his young nephew grow and develop himself, personally growth and professionally in the manner which he has done has just been absolutely amazing for me to witness, and really have glad to have him on to provide his insights. He's dedicated. He certainly cares about the work he does and the clients that he works with. He founded the Health Institute, THI for short, back in 2010, and it's a facility, it's a health service facility that provides a wide range of health services that promote healthy living, injury prevention, and performance enhancement. He's always been around education and promotion of health, fitness, and overall well-being, and that's why his input on this topic just makes so much sense, because our mental state and self-care does fall under that umbrella of well-being. We even got a little bit personal. We both had some challenges, marital challenges. I talked to him a little bit with my divorce with him, and he sort of shared some of the things that he's been going through, and it was a really good opportunity to just not only share and support, but encourage one another. And we've certainly gotten to a great conversation about even being vulnerable and why that's important. So, look, I can go on forever and talk about this, but instead of doing that, I'm going to stop talking and give you now an opportunity to hear from Dr. J. Enjoy. For over a decade, the Health Institute has taken a unique approach to healthcare through education and promotion of health, fitness, and overall well-being. In keeping with the spirit of self-care and love, THI founder Dr. Joel Kerr joined the program to discuss happiness and self-love strategies we all can implement to make sure our overall well-being remains intact. All this and more coming up next on the Audacious Living Podcast. So we had a great conversation the other day, and was really centered around happiness and personal happiness, and how the affliction, if you will, and the pandemic that we're in, of that lack of happiness. And I was saying how, after our conversation, I was really sort of dwelling on that and really, spending some time thinking about that and how real that is. And so talk about health and wellness is an area which obviously you play in a lot. You get to see some of that a little bit. And I'm just wondering if you sort of can comment on just sort of how that in fact impacts our overall wellness.
Absolutely, Audley. The catchphrase of pandemic, and usually each year we have a list of words that are predominantly used in media or in communities. And this year, it's obviously been pandemic.
Yep.
And a pandemic is, by definition, a wave or increase of in this case, a virus, or cases that are affecting people's health. But in my opinion, I feel like um, the the pandemic of unhappy relationships or unhappy people has exponentially been increased because of the lockdown and the quarantine measures that have been implemented. Because when you're distracted or when you have other things that are you have access to, you can easily um, avoid recognizing when you're unhappy because you have other things to fill that void for you from your relationships or your home life or whatever it may be. But when those things are taken away, it's pretty obvious that you can recognize how quickly that you're not as happy as you thought.
Right.
But to answer your question with regards to health and wellness and with respect to what I do, there are a lot of people who go through the motions with regards to their exercise routine and their fitness level. They do it because they know the benefits of it, but they actually don't enjoy it. And that's something that we really do stress a lot at the Health Institute with regards to making people fall in love with taking care of themselves. And if you recognize what I just said, like I didn't say make them fall in love with lifting weights, make them fall in love with running a half marathon. No, that's not it. It's make them fall in love with taking care of themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things. And that's something that we really do stress at the Health Institute or THI,
Yep.
because we have a variety of people that look at health and movement and fitness in different ways. Not everyone does it the same way. Not everyone has the same skill set. And I feel like that's something that we really emphasize when we meet every single client and tell them, listen, you're not the same as your husband, you're not the same as your sister. We're going to make sure that this is specific to you and what you love, and make sure that you fall in love with taking care of yourself and being happy with yourself.
As you're saying that, I'm hearing phrases like, or terms like self-care and self-love. Really is what we're talking about here, because it starts with that first, right? Like, you've got to have that want for yourself or that love for yourself before you can expect some outward changes.
This is so true, and it is definitely a term that has been thrown around a lot more the past couple of years. We're in January, so we're talking about what is it? Let's Talk, I believe it is the Bell Let's Talk conversation. And in addition to that, if you or segue to that, it's self-care.
Right.
In the past, we used to call it active therapy or homework or corrective exercises. We go through these different terms each year with regards to something that is simple as self-love. I think that is an area where everyone could do better at. No one could say that they're perfect at taking care of themselves, because you're lying. You're absolutely lying. So we always could do more for ourselves.
Well, you see that with parents as an example. They pour their all being into their children, and I totally understand that, and it's not a condemnation.
Yes.
But there's your point. There's that you're denying yourself a little bit, and when you get on a plane, whenever we do get back on planes again, we're going to hear that announcement where they say, in case of emergency, put the life preserver on you first before you attend to the children, for example. Right? You've got to look after yourself as the starting point.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's so interesting that you bring that point up in that analogy, because I have been communicating with a mother with regards to booking appointments for her son, and she just kept going on about how her son has lost motivation and he needs something to focus on. And part of my vision with the Health Institute, just to backtrack about the clinic dynamics, is we originally started working with student athletes, and the goal was obviously to assist as many student athletes to pursue their health, not their health, but their aspirations of playing collegiate sport. And in the back setting of this business plan, I always knew that parents obviously needed to bring their children to their appointments. So the pitch always was get the kids in, and then once we get the kids going, then we start targeting the parents, specifically the moms who usually are bringing kids to their appointments. I don't know if you saw this study that came out recently, but they have pointed out the fact that during this pandemic, since March, mothers are being affected by the amount of stress that is being placed upon them more so than ever.
Wow.
And then, if unfortunately a mother is a single mother who already has an undue amount of stress on her plate, this is increased, at least they said 3 or 4 times the amount of stress that they're under and their mental health concerns. That's astronomical, and that is not rocket science either. So with regards to that mother that called in, as much as she was talking about her son and trying to get him in, I could feel the amount of stress, pressure she was under. And I said, okay, I just need you to do me a favor and just take a breath. And I've never met her before. We're talking on the phone. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. So I just said, do me a favor. I got everything that you said. And she repeated herself multiple times. I said, okay, just pause for a second. Let's just breathe. Take a breath. So she does it. She takes 3 big breaths in because I asked her to take 3. And I said, okay, what about you? And she's like, what do you mean? Oh man, it was like I swore at her. She was taken aback by me asking.
Never thought of herself in the equation at all, right? I'm here for my child, and that's all that the focus is, right? Not even recognizing that perhaps there might be an issue, and I'm not, or there might be something, or that she needs attention, or whatever, right? It's not even a thought.
It was fascinating. It was really fascinating because she just didn't get what I was saying to her. And I said, listen, let me just break this down for you. I love the fact that you're looking out for your son, but what about yourself?
Right.
What do you need? She's like, well, you're right, because since and I said, okay, let's book you this appointment. I met her yesterday for the first time, and she's excited about her first appointment on Saturday.
Wonderful.
You know what I mean? Like, that is one of the main reasons why I do this, why I started the Institute, why what brings me happiness, to be honest with you. It's definitely something that brings me happiness on a daily, regular basis. I'm never going to be a millionaire, billionaire, Jeff Bezos money, but the happiness that comes from seeing someone do better with regards to their self-care is more than enough payment.
That's amazing, and that just goes back to the love of what you do and that passion for it, right? And that will sustain you from a happiness standpoint. So I totally get that and can relate on so many levels. So I want to dive into this a bit. So someone, we're gonna have viewers or listeners. How do they identify within themselves that there potentially could be an issue, and they need to talk to someone, whether it be a therapist or whomever?
It's a very good question. I think one aspect where someone could recognize that they may need help is if they start losing passion in things that they used to find passion in. And it could be a wide range of things. It could be interacting with your family. It could be cooking, painting. It's a wide variety of things that you used to do that used to bring you joy, and it no longer brings you joy. There's also some just simple things like you're sleeping all day, not eating, irritable, mood changes, things of those natures could definitely let you know that, hey, you know what? It might be time for me just to reach out and speak to a counselor and talk about how I'm feeling. It's such I know this is going to sound really ass backwards, but this pandemic, in my humble opinion, it was a great thing for many people who have been hiding how they truly feel. Maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you tell someone that you're speaking to a counselor, like, yo, odd man, something wrong with you? Like, you
Right.
seem happy all the time. What's wrong with you? You don't look like you need a counselor. No, it doesn't go that way, man. It's not a terrible thing. I like to use the word coach, to be honest with you. I think guys, men, we can get away with that. We feel more comfortable saying that you're going to go see your brain coach, your mind coach, or whatever. And within our community, we still have that stigma that going to a counselor is a sign of weakness.
Weakness. I mean, look, vulnerability is a big thing, right? You don't want to be seen vulnerable. And you know, I oftentimes say that people reckon there's far more strength in being vulnerable than not. You know, you sort of talked about sort of what the pandemic has done, and I think it's easy to identify. So if there's a major shift in your life, a loss of a job, relationship, whatever, and that affects your personal happiness or affects you in some way, those are far more easy to understand. But those mild little subtle cases are the ones that you really have to watch for, because they can slowly sort of eat at you and you not be, and you know, totally unaware of it. That's what's happening to you.
Absolutely. And those are the ones that are more troubling, because you can easily flick the switch and pretend to be happy and be, hey man, like what's going on? But inside, like you said, it's just eating away at you slowly, and you're just losing passion and desire to do things that used to make you happy. And that's not gonna fly. Like, especially when we try to get back to some normalcy, what most people are probably gonna do is they're gonna overindulge.
Right.
And the overindulgence is going to lead to other issues. It could be drinking, alcohol, sex, whatever it may be, but you're just going to find yourself in a situation where you don't necessarily want to be. And we just need to make sure that we take this time to really grow from the inside so that everything could be flourishing on the outside.
Got you. So we talked about, you know, seeing someone, whether it be a brain coach or a therapist or, you know, whatever that individual is. What are some other things that we can do to sort of get ourselves back on that track of where we should be when we talk about personal happiness?
I obviously have to advocate for it, and it's movement, exercise, training, whatever you want to call it. That is something that should be incorporated in every single person's daily routine. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be what you're doing, Armin. It has to be something that you can commit to doing on a day-to-day basis. Since the beginning of the year, I've started just promoting the idea of how to build a habit. And it's literally just doing something every single day for 21 days.
Right.
And once you do it for 21 days, then it's just part of your regular routine.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm just advocating for everyone to just go for a walk every morning. Henceforth, why I was a little late, because I woke up a little late for our call, and I had to just go do my morning routine before I got on the call. For me, where I'm at right now with this thing is, if I don't do it in the morning between a certain time, my whole chemistry, my whole balance, I just feel off.
Right.
So it literally has become just like me brushing my teeth. Like I don't know about you, but if we're not brushing your teeth and trying to talk and eat food, you just feel everything's gross.
Right.
So right now with my movement, so I'm just trying to get everyone to understand that getting your body outside in the fresh air, no matter if it's cold, hot, rainy, just feeling that morning breeze on your body and on your face is the best way for you to try to keep some level of mental health on the up, and just to keep your passion and desires focused on getting things done.
Yep. I love overall the attention that society. Again, we talked earlier about, it's something that wasn't normalized before, but as time is going on, it becomes more prevalent to talk about and become open with it and expose and share our vulnerabilities, because unless we're talking about these sorts of things, hiding them in a closet is not going to get us healthy or not going to get us to where we need to be. I think this is
Not at all.
when you sort of talked about this as potentially a discussion, I jumped on it because I absolutely recognize that this is needed right now, especially now.
Yeah, and especially, and I'm going to, just because it's two of us that are on a call,
Yeah.
especially Black men.
Yeah.
Like Black men, we just don't want to talk about things that either cause us undue stress or cause us vulnerability, as you eloquently mentioned earlier, or things that part of my language, we fucked up. Like we just don't want to talk about it because I don't want you to know that I messed up my marriage. And every time I see you, I'm just going to be like, oh man, like Audley knows that I was married before and now I'm not. And he's going to think I'm a failure. Like I feel like Black men in general, we don't do well with and we try to make it define who we are. And I could just tell you the truth is, as we're sitting on here, like, I wish I had talked about my relationship earlier with somebody else, because then I would have recognized that there were some things that I should have dealt with sooner and not allowed to fester and create resentment.
Yep.
And the only reason why I didn't talk about it is because I thought that my boys would call me this, that, chump, weak, not a man. You know what I mean? All these negative labels, and I didn't really open up. And you know my uncle, and he's very open and honest with me all the time.
Yep.
I didn't even talk to him about any of the stuff that I was going through, and I know he would have been able to guide me through some stuff because he's lived it.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, it's true. I mean, look, myself personally, as I shared with you, I mean, I've gone through my own sort of fair share of challenges, and unfortunately, went through a divorce that was difficult for me because I was so much about family. Family has always been something important to me, and now the D word comes in and jeopardizes that or breaks that apart, and I sort of felt like I was losing some of my identity. And what do I do now, and how do I get through that, and how do I overcome? So it is an incredible journey to go through by yourself. I think that we all have to have healthy and productive ways of managing and dealing with it, whether it's talking to someone or getting viewpoints or doing something, or participating in sort of healthy activities and that, or something. You've got to do something, but leaving it on your own isn't a place for anyone to be. No, not at all.
Absolutely. And I think the simplest thing that I recognize to do is just talk. Like, I'm being honest with you, like, I didn't want to talk about any of this stuff.
Right.
Because I was afraid. I was literally afraid to talk about the fact that I was going through my relationship issues and now going through the separation and pending divorce.
Right.
Because I've always prided myself on success.
Right.
And obviously a divorce isn't a successful sign of a relationship. Right. And stepping out of the marriage isn't either, right?
Sorry to cut you, but I also think, and specifically, you're a professional in this field, and you're working, you're helping people get healthy physically, mentally, and doing all the things to support others. But in your own world, this is happening to you. So I can also see where there's added pressure for you to want to kind of keep it contained.
Yeah, definitely. But it's, as I look back on it now, it's just, I wouldn't, it's just not the right way, is basically what I'm getting at. And like you said earlier, it was eating away at me. Like it was taking away my focus on my practice, potentially, on my interactions with other relationships, other individuals, obviously the relationship as well. Like it's just, it had a toll on me on so many different levels where it's just not the way humans are not designed to be isolated and isolated, not just physically, but with our thoughts and our feelings. Like we're supposed to be able to express how we're feeling at all times. And once we stop doing that, that's where the problems begin. And that's every relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a romantic relationship. It could be with your family, your work colleagues, all of that stuff. Because once resentment starts building up, oh my goodness, every time I see, so there goes that Audley guy again. I don't like that guy. and you're coming up to me, giving me hugs, and I'm just stabbing you in the back with my imaginary knife. That's not positive. So, you know what I'm saying, though?
No, I do, and that's why when we talk about the importance of us sort of speaking our truth, right? It does two things. I think it liberates us as individuals, allows us to be free, but it also helps us, right? So now I know that this person's gone through this journey, and I've seen how they've gotten through that. That can inspire me. So it's a two-way street. I understand is one of the most difficult things out there to put everything out there and expose yourself in a fashion that leaves you vulnerable. But at the same time, as a saying I heard once said, there's a mess in your message, and or sorry, I'm gonna get this wrong. I always mess it up. Turn your mess into your message is what I wanted to say, and I think there's a lot of truth in that.
Absolutely. And the thing with what's happening in our society, I feel, I know in my shirt it says politics freedom, but we do have to bring into the fact that the political landscape in the South, and even here too, let's just not front. Canada is not perfect in any way, shape, or form. Politicians lie all the time. And they bend the truth, they misconstrue the truth. But what's been happening in the general population is the truth doesn't mean the truth anymore.
Right.
And that's scary.
Yeah.
And when you have grown men who have so much quote unquote power behind everyone else's life, and they're flat out saying something like cold water is hot,
Right.
and just repeatedly saying the cold water is hot, the cold water is hot. And then when you go to turn on the cold water or the hot water or the either or, like you're just doing the opposite of what the person just told you,
right?
You're going to get hurt. And that's what's happening right now, where people are going out of their way to say, quote unquote, their truths, but they're not recognizing that their truths might not actually be the truth.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right. You're right. And that's where that's the hazard in all this. And that's where we have to be careful and be mindful and sort of develop that inner awareness for ourselves and be able to discern the messages that we're getting. So, Jay, man, I've enjoyed this chat immensely. I think it's an important one. I think that people will find value in being able to not only just understand, but recognize that awareness is huge. And I think that really is a starting point for any sort of path of healthiness, whether it's physically or mentally. You have to have that awareness. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, man. I actually wanted to ask you a question before you head out.
Yeah,
when do you think this distortion of reality, truth, science, whatever you want to use, like when do you think that started becoming more of a mainstream collective thought, in your opinion?
I think, and as for a guy like myself that is active and participative on social media as I am, I think as we saw the rise of social media in terms of the ability to get my messages out very quickly to a large number of people in a short period of time and effort, when you start that become more normalized in the mainstream, and there's good and bad to it, right? There absolutely is. But the hazard now is you've got all these messages bombarding you, and now if I want to find a particular segment or audience or group of people to believe my message, there's one out there for me. I can find a group, and we can mobilize together and start this groundswell if we wanted to. So I think that's when we talk about what the downside of social media. I think it takes away from the individual thought and it makes it collective thought. And so we need to sort of recognize that and make that discernment. We talk about discerning, right? Discern for ourselves before we sort of just hitch our wagon to whatever train's coming along next.
No, I agree. It's access. There's more access to people who think like you all the way in Italy.
Right.
You could reach out and speak to Giuseppe, and you guys could have the same idea that you wear blue blazers on Thursday with a red tie. You guys can start your own little posse.
That's right.
And it's just access. You're right. I totally agree with you. 1,000%.
Yeah, no. And so until we sort of address that, or because you're not gonna, the genie's out of the bottle now. You're not gonna stop it, right? But I think what we have the understanding of what's happening around us, I think that's how we can better address it. Because now it's at a point where you get on social media, whether Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and you're watching these engagements, and it's really more about finding data or evidence to prove the other side is wrong. And our society right now, more than anything else, I was at the end of every podcast, I say, be kind, show love, be compassionate. I also throw in being audacious as well, but that's from a brand perspective. But the key in all this is certainly kindness, love and compassion. And until that we're collectively doing that, until we're collectively taking time, and part of those things is understanding, right? Until we're collectively doing those things, I think we're going to be on this path for a little while, and it could potentially get even worse if you could imagine that. But yeah, those are some missing elements that we sorely need.
I certainly hope you're not right about the last part about it getting worse, but it's definitely on the cusp of it.
Right.
And I know you got children, and I have a daughter, and I'm constantly trying to talk to her about being aware of the impact social media and the screen in general has on her age at this stage.
Yep, that's right.
You know what I mean? I just feel like it doesn't create effort with these kids because everything is just at their
it's at their disposal, at their fingertips. Everyone, their viewpoint on the world is all based on who they follow and who they pay attention to and whose voices are the loudest. The loudest voice doesn't make you the rightest voice, right? So, for me and my children, my messages has always been just, take things with a grain of salt, understand there are other perspectives. And then I also, as best as I possibly can as a parent, is be consistent with my own messaging. There's nothing I would say that I don't do, and I wouldn't expect them to say something that would conflict with their actions. So I think if each of us are sort of doing that piece on our own and influencing, we all have a sphere of influence. So if each of us are doing that within our individual sphere, I think that's a pathway for us to being on the right track. Absolutely.
I love that.
So that's
the loudest voice isn't the rightest voice.
You're absolutely right. And I'm often told I'm loud, but I'm not that loud.
Well, you're definitely not.
Sure. Jay, look, man, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you, my friend, and we'll catch up.
Thanks, man. Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good day, man.
Back we are here on the Audacious Living Podcast, and I want to give a big shout out to Dr. J for rolling through and adding his valuable insights to the convo. He certainly left us lots to consider, but one of the things that he made abundantly clear to me is the importance of us being very, very deliberate around our personal self-care. We've got to pay very close attention to the signs, things like sudden changes in our behaviors or our moods. Those sorts of things really should be monitored and followed up with if necessary. Look to create positive habits and be consistent with them on a regular basis. Maybe not every day, but certainly on somewhat of some schedule or some period of regularity. I think by us being intentional with our own well-being and not compromising is the key. At least that's how I see it. Anyhow, I really hope that you've heard something today that you can take and implement in your own life immediately. That really is the key to all this, and that's what the Audacious Living Podcast is all about. That's it for today's episode, and I really appreciate all of you for being here, checking us out, engaging, supporting us. Be sure to follow up on our website, bestaudaciouslife.com. My appreciation goes out to Dr. J for hopping on with me. And until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to others, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.